Welcome back to RonMan Gaming. RonMan here as always, and well, it's still October, and that means we're still going to be reviewing creepy video games. So in today's episode, I will be reviewing Nightmare Creatures for the Nintendo 64. Also, if you're new here and you like my content, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as well as that bell notification so you stay up to date with RonMan Gaming. Nightmare Creatures is an action horror game that was developed by Callisto Entertainment and published by Activision for the PlayStation in 1997. A year later, Nightmare Creatures was ported to the Nintendo 64. Although both versions are mostly the same, there are some differences between them. The PS1 version has cutscenes and better sound quality, but also has load times and looks more pixelated. The Nintendo 64 version looks sharper and has the option to turn off the adrenaline meter. Also, the story is told through text rather than cutscenes. The story begins in London, 1666, where a devil-worshipping cult, referred to as the Brotherhood of Hecate, attempted to brew an elixir that would give them superhuman strength. With their newfound strength, they planned to take over London and then eventually the world. Their test subjects were corpses, and as it turns out, their elixir didn't work. Instead, they accidentally created an army of grotesque monsters. The Brotherhood intentionally unleashed the monsters into London. As the monsters were wreaking havoc, one of the Brotherhood members, who went by the name of Samuel Pepys, decided to torch their laboratory, henceforth creating the infamous fire of 1666. Jump to the year 1834, where a mysterious plague has been spreading throughout London. Those infected begin to experience grotesque mutations. A priest by the name of Ignatius Blackward discovers an odd black tome which has information regarding a formula which causes mutations. Ignatius contacts a friend who also happens to be a doctor, and he travels to London with his daughter Nadia. The doctor gets murdered and the tome gets stolen. At the doctor's funeral, a man in a black robe hands Nadia a note that basically just says Adam Crowley. So after that, Ignatius and Nadia set out to track down Adam Crowley. Before you start a new game, you're able to choose between Ignatius or Nadia. Before that though, you should go to the options menu. Here you can adjust the brightness and the difficulty, as well as toggle the adrenaline meter. The adrenaline meter is basically just a time limit. It slowly drains and will only refill after killing a monster. As far as the difficulty is concerned, the only difference between easy and hard is how much health the monsters have. When it comes to choosing a character, the only difference between them, as far as I can tell, is their combos. Otherwise, they both have the same speed, strength, and health, so it doesn't really matter who you pick. In total, Nightmare Creatures has 20 levels. Aside from a few boss stages, most of them are huge and are packed full of monsters to kill and items to find. As you find items, you can collect and stockpile them to use at any time you need. Most of them are consumable, so make sure to always be on the lookout to keep yourself stocked up. Besides the consumable items, you may come across permanent weapon upgrades for your staff or sword. Keep an eye out though, because these are usually very well hidden. You're free to take your time and search every nook and cranny. Just make sure to turn off that adrenaline meter. In terms of level design, I think the developers nailed it, and it's Nightmare Creatures' biggest strength. At the end of every level, you'll see a screen that calculates what percentage of the monsters were killed, as well as how many items were found. If you 100% both the monsters and the items, you'll get rewarded with an extra item. Also, you'll have the opportunity to either save your game or get a password. If you save your game, you'll need a memory card. I love that they included both options. Exploring the levels wouldn't be nearly as fun if the monsters who populated these levels weren't fun to slaughter. And they are. Throughout the game, you'll encounter many different monsters, all with different attack patterns. As you attack, you'll always have a chance to amputate the enemy. Those permanent weapon upgrades I mentioned will permanently increase your chances of amputation. There are quite a few weapon upgrades throughout the game, so the better the weapon, the higher the chance of slicing off limbs. I can't state enough how satisfying it is to lob off enemy body parts. Besides that, you may find that certain combos work better on certain monsters. So when it comes to fighting, always think of these three things. Number 1, take some time to learn how enemies behave. Number 2, memorize a few of the combos. And number 3, make sure to always use the block button and the sidestep buttons. This brings me to the controls. In my opinion, they work well, you know, for an N64 game. You can attack, jump, block, sidestep, and sift through and use items. There's really nothing you wouldn't expect. So how about that camera? Well, it's an N64 game. No, I'm just kidding, it's not that bad. Sometimes it'll get stuck, but it's really not a deal breaker, at least not for me. The music and sound effects are fantastic. The monsters sound ghoulishly evil, and giving them a well-deserved beating sounds very satisfying. Most of the levels don't actually contain traditional music, but rather a quiet and spooky ambience. The boss levels, on the other hand, are fucking metal. Because this is the N64 version, the music doesn't sound quite as good as the PlayStation 1 counterpart, but it's still really good. In terms of graphics, well, this is one of the better looking Nintendo 64 games. They made great use of darker colors and the textures don't look stretched out. Okay, so the graphics are well done, but what I think is just as important, if not more so, is the atmosphere. And it's good. If this game doesn't get you in the mood for Halloween, I don't know what will. These levels are all interesting and diverse. From the dank sewers to the snow-covered cemetery and everything in between, every level in Nightmare Creatures is unnerving and hauntingly beautiful. What further pushes the eerie atmosphere is the attention to small detail. Look at how the leaves fall off the trees, or how if you walk through a puddle of blood, you'll leave behind a trail of bloody footprints. You can see ghosts ascending from their resting places, or zombies rising from the grave. The monster design, much like the level design, is delightfully varied. From typical zombies and werewolves to whatever these are, killing monsters always feels fresh. This monster is called a Docker, and the first time I ever ran into one, I was all like, "Ah!" So that's Nightmare Creatures. I love this game and I consider it to be a must-play every Halloween. Let me know if you guys have played this game, and if so, which console do you prefer this on? The PS1 or the Nintendo 64? Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit them buttons and I will see you next time.